please continue to stand by for today's conference. We will begin momentarily. Once again, please continue to stand by for today's conference call. During the Q&A session, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad to ask the question. That is star 1 if you would like to ask a question. Again, please continue to stand by. We will begin momentarily.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm Marlena's still on the line.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, great. Calvin, I think we're ready when you are if you want to introduce me.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, and thank you for standing by. I'd just like to inform all parties that your lines have been placed in a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer session of today's conference call. I'd also like to inform you that this call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the meeting over to your host, Ms. Kiana Rains. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you. Good evening from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Kiana Rains with NASA's Office of Communications. Thank you for joining us for today's pre-launch news conference for NASA and SpaceX's 27th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station. Dragon will deliver more than 6,000 pounds of research, supplies, and vehicle hardware to the station. Liftoff is currently targeted for no earlier than March 14th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Teams from NASA and SpaceX just completed the launch readiness review, and senior representatives are here to talk with us about this important milestone. With us this evening are Phil Dempsey, NASA's International Space Station Program's Transportation Integration Manager, Megan Everett, NASA's International Space Station Program Research Office's Deputy Chief Scientist, Sarah Walker, SpaceX's Dragon Mission Management Director, and Arlena Moses, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's 45th Weather Squadron's Launch Weather Officer. Our speakers will each provide opening remarks, followed by questions from reporters on the line. To enter the question queue, please press star 1. To start, we will hear from Phil Dempsey, NASA's International Space Station Program's Transportation Integration Manager.
All right, thank you, Kiana, and thanks to everyone out there for tuning in this evening. SpaceX has just completed the launch readiness review of the 27th resupply cargo mission to the International Space Station, and the teams are looking really good to proceed toward launch. SpaceX and NASA will proceed with final cargo load overnight and monitor weather for the primary opportunity. CRS-27 is currently planning to launch Tuesday, March 14th at 7:30 p.m. Central from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Arrival to the station is scheduled for 6:07 a.m. Central, Thursday, March 16th. And the spacecraft will dock to the forward-facing port of station's Harmony module. Once on board, Cargo Dragon will spend about a month docked to space station before returning cargo and science back to Earth. Dragon's carrying just under 6,300 pounds of cargo, which includes crew supplies, science investigations, spacewalk equipment, and vehicle hardware. In addition, the crew has requested some fresh fruit and refrigerated cheeses. So on board are apples, blueberries, grapefruit, oranges, cherry tomatoes, as well as a few different cheeses. I'll let Megan discuss in more detail in a moment the science launching on board Dragon, but we'll just say that we're looking forward to the crew on board Space Station having new science and research investigations available to work on. So speaking of crew, you may have seen that Crew 6 recently arrived to Space Station after launching earlier this month, and just this past weekend, Crew 5 returned back to Earth, completing their long-duration mission on Space Station. Looking ahead a bit, it's going to continue to be a busy spring for the Space Station teams as we anticipate Northrop Grumman's NG-19 cargo launch, Axiom 2, our second private astronaut mission, and Boeing's CFT mission. We're really excited and looking forward to launch tomorrow night and having another Dragon on board. With that, I'll turn it over to Megan.
All right, thank you, Phil. And again, we're really excited about the opportunity to share some information on the innovative research and technology developments being sent to the International Space Station on SpaceX-27. We will be launching approximately 60 new payloads to add to the complement of research already being carried out by our ISS crew members. I'm going to briefly highlight a handful of the high-priority payloads supported by our NASA sponsors, ISS National Labs, and our international partners. So first up is Cardinal Heart 2.0 and Engineered Heart Tissue 2.0. These are investigations leveraging tissue chip technologies brought to us by National Lab and the National Institute of Health, with research scientists from Stanford University and Johns Hopkins University. This is the final phase of the ISS National Lab and NIH Tissue Chip in Space initiative, and it will investigate the effectiveness of the clinically approved pharmaceuticals, as well as look at new therapies to prevent microgravity-induced changes in heart tissue and improve treatments for patients with cardiac disease here on Earth. The next investigation we'll talk about is an education outreach effort through the Hunch program called the Ball Clamp Monopod. And this hardware was developed by high school students from local Houston area schools in Cypress Woods, Clear Creek High School, and Conroe High School. And this will look at addressing the difficulty of positioning videos and video cameras on the space station in the middle of modules. So the students will get video back from the space station to evaluate how well their hardware looked and worked. So we are very excited to see higher quality photography and video from our crew members coming down very soon. Next highlight is a demonstration called Capsorb Visible System out of Ames Research Center. And this demonstration aims to improve on current carbon dioxide removal methods in microgravity using capillary forces to control the movement of liquids. The improving carbon dioxide removal methods is very critical for exploration vehicles so that we can maintain the environmental conditions to support crew for many months or years on future spacecraft. And this system will be using highly visible red liquid for video and photography, so we should get some very interesting science and video downlinks coming down for you all to see soon. And the ESA-sponsored biofilms investigation aims to look at microorganisms living on internal surfaces on the space station. And these organisms create slimy matrix that can damage hardware and equipment on the space station, and they're very resistant to cleaning agents. So this study will look at how biofilms are formed on different gravity levels in inhibiting and non-inhibiting surfaces on the space station. And these results will directly inform selecting materials with antimicrobial qualities for future spacecraft. And lastly, we're going to highlight JAXA's Tanpopo 5 investigation. So this is the fifth in a series of investigations that uses the XBAS facility attached to the GEM. And here, bacterium and moss spores will be exposed to harsh space environments and will be tested for survivability and growth. And the goal of this investigation is to look at origin, transportation, and survival of life in space. So with these investigations, we look forward to impactful scientific results to advance human exploration in space and technologies here on Earth. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me again twice in 48 hours. This is an incredibly exciting time to be in spaceflight. Just reflecting on the last few days, Phil was mentioning this. We launched the Crew 6 mission to the space station less than 2 weeks ago on 3/2, and we're glad to hear they're already very busy up on ISS. And then 2 nights ago, I was sitting in mission control back at SpaceX headquarters as we safely brought the Crew 5 crew home to their families. Then I had a day with my own family before I flew to Florida early this morning for tomorrow night's CRS-27 launch. I feel like I always say this, but I cannot believe we are already talking about the 27th cargo mission to the ISS. So tomorrow's launch will be the 39th trip that Dragon has taken to space and the 36th visit to ISS. This is the 7th flight of this booster and the 3rd flight of this Dragon capsule. When I said it's an exciting time to be in spaceflight, this is one of the biggest reasons why. When I started at SpaceX, flying rockets back from space and landing them to be used again had never been done. Fast forward a few years, Falcon 9 has successfully launched 208 times and landed 166 of those times. We have boosters in our fleet that have flown to space and back 15 times. So this 3rd flight spacecraft and 7th flight booster is, in my mind, a testament both to the rapid advancement of technology and to the close partnership and collaboration with our NASA colleagues. I'm proud to support tomorrow's launch, sending critical cargo and science to the space station. And Phil also mentioned that we just completed our launch readiness review a few moments ago. The vehicle is healthy and all the systems are a go for launch. The main thing that the teams continue to monitor over the next 24 hours is weather. So with that, thanks as always to NASA and the 45th for their trust, partnership, and close collaboration on the CRS-27 launch. And Arlena, tell us how the weather's looking, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm happy to say that the weather is trending much better than what we were initially looking at this morning. For those of you who are here on the Space Coast, you know we had quite an active late morning and afternoon, but the system that was driving that weather has now moved to the south, and we're just expecting over the next 24 hours to see some passing mid and high clouds. Now, there's a small possibility that some of these clouds may pose what we would call a thick cloud layer concern, or mid-level clouds that are thick enough that they still could carry some electric charge, but are not like thunderstorm-type clouds. However, models have definitely trended in our favor, and while earlier we were looking at a potential of probability of violation around 50%, I can now say that we're coming down to only 20% for that probability of violating our weather constraints for our primary launch window tomorrow evening. So definitely weather going in the right direction. And looking forward, if I have to go into any of our backup windows, weather's still looking pretty good for the 24-hour delay or 72-hour delay, with just some concerns at the 72-hour delay for stronger winds as things pick up ahead of the next system that'll get to us next weekend. But overall, weather's gone in the right direction, and hopefully have a good launch here going forward. Back to you, Kiana.
Thank you all. We will now move into the question and answer portion of our call. As a reminder, to enter the question queue, please press star 1. When called upon, please state your affiliation and to whom you are addressing your question. We will take one question per round so that we can get through as many as possible. With that, our first question is from Stephen Clark, Spaceflight Now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I think this question's for Phil. This flight is using a booster flying for the 7th time. I think for crew missions, NASA is looking at certifying Falcon 9 boosters for up to 5 flights for crew. I'm curious what the limit is, or is there one, given that SpaceX has flown some boosters up to 15 times for cargo flights? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we actually have criteria that we use, that we partner with SpaceX and our engineering teams to evaluate the components of a booster. So it's really not specifically based just on a number of flights for cargo. It's based on the assessment of the health of the booster and to meet the requirements for a government mission. Thank
you. And as a reminder, to enter the question queue, please press star 1. Our next question is from Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good evening. Question for Phil. Just looking ahead a little bit, when are you expecting the NG-18 Cygnus to depart the station and NG-19 Cygnus to launch?
So for NG-18, on board there are a handful of operations that are still being planned and looking forward. So that will be sometime over the next 1 to 2 months. The exact time is still being worked out. For NG-19, we're currently trending later in the spring. There's readiness that's being worked between Northrop Grumman and NASA to go understand when the vehicle is ready. And so we're looking at sometime, of course, later in the spring. That would be after we free up the port, get NG-18 off, then NG-19 could launch again sometime within the next couple of months there.
Okay, we currently have one more question in the queue, so as a reminder, to ask a question, please press star 1. Our next question is from Bill Harwood, CBS News.
Yeah, hi, guys. Just a real quick weather question. What are the odds for 24 and 72 hours? Realizing asking that question 2 and 3 days out is kind of an exercise in futility, but what are the numbers as they are today? Thanks.
Yes, right now for 24 hours, we're looking at 5%. Right behind this front, we're looking at several days of pretty good weather. So only 5% for 24 hours, and that'll be for the cumulus cloud rule, so just looking at potential for a few passing clouds. For the 72-hour, we're looking at 10%, and that is for liftoff winds as we get pretty strong winds out of the south picking up there Friday evening.
Thank you very much.
Our next question is from Dakota Wachter at the Launchpad News.
Hey there, y'all. Thank you for taking my question. I was curious if there were any plans to use the Hunchball clamp monopod on an outside EVA or through the cupola during an EVA to get some kind of live shots or broadcasting shots of the EVAs with it.
All right. Thank you for the question. Good question, but the Hunchball monopod will be inside the space station. So right now we'll be evaluating it and testing its ability to provide stable video and pictures. And we'll make any decisions on its further use after we get that data down.
Thank you.
We have one more question in the queue, and the question is from Ken Kramer, Space Up Close.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Question about Starliner. I think that is going to need to dock at the forward port. Is that right? And so when do you have any update on timing for when that might launch? Thanks.
Yeah, so you're correct. So for the CFT mission that's coming up, they do have to dock to the forward port. The timing of it right now, we're NASA and Boeing and Commercial Crew Program and ISS program together are talking over the readiness of the vehicle. As you know, we really can't go fly one of these vehicles until it's ready and safe. There is a handful of open work that's still being assessed. You know, the current timing is no earlier than the end of April. It's April 30th right now, but that is under review at the moment based on the readiness of the vehicle. You know, if it doesn't make that time, then we'll find the next available opportunity and available port and put it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And thank you once again to our experts for taking time out of your busy pre-launch schedules to talk to us about this vital mission. NASA TV coverage for this mission begins tomorrow, March 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with liftoff scheduled for 8:30 p.m. For launch updates and information on how to join the science media briefing for this mission, scheduled for 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow morning, please visit nasa.gov. Thank you for dialing in and have a great evening.